My name is Nathan Knapp, and I am the podcastingest podcast on YouTube. Years ago, I watched YouTube and I saw other people podcast, and I thought, this totally sucks. I can also suck on YouTube. And I do, better than anyone else. My name is Nathan Knapp, and this is Ignore the Bell. I have no idea if that even makes sense. I have never watched The Flash. I'm told that I just riffed off of the intro to The Flash from the CW. Am I getting this right?
You did. It was amazing.
Okay. Well, good. Hello and welcome to Ignore the Bell. My name is Nathan.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Luke.
And today we are talking DC on the TV. We're talking DC television shows and specifically crossover stuff.
Yes.
All right. So we have got our resident superhero fiction expert on here with Luke, and Tyler and I, we do not really watch DC TV shows. Is that right, Tyler?
Yeah, I've seen, I don't know, 2, maybe 3 episodes of The Flash. And outside of that, nothing. The other day when we were talking about this, I could not even remember or list any other shows. I'm like, I think Legends of Tomorrow is one of them, and that was it. That was all I could come up with.
Basically, what we're ultimately doing, and yeah, I don't even know what they are either. I'll give you a brief little introduction, once we get into the podcast of my own experience with DC television shows. But I'll save that until after we do the introduction here. But yeah, this is really going to be a podcast that's kind of similar to what we did with where you guys explained the Avengers Endgame to me. Is that even the name of the movie? I can't even remember.
Yeah, Avengers Endgame.
Okay. Endgame, yeah. So I did not see it. These two guys saw it, and they just explained it to me for the length of the movie. It was 3 hours of them explaining what happened in it, and then me just reacting to it. So essentially, Luke is going to catch us up on everything that's been happening with DC in its own television universe. Yeah. And it's going to more or less be essentially like a pitch meeting. You're going to tell us, this is the plan, this is what we're doing. And Tyler and I will say, oh, sounds tight. Things like that. Yeah, so we do have a sponsor for today's episode. So Luke, you've got our sponsor for today.
Yes. So today our sponsor is leather. It's for if you ever, you're thinking of being a hero or something fun like that, and you want a cool costume, leather is always a nice, comfortable way to go.
Okay. Go out and get some leather. So what about spandex? Is spandex still in?
That's kind of like a Marvel thing, but sometimes DC costumes are a little better, so leather is the way to go for that. They're kind of competitors, I guess. So
right,
and they don't go for the smart nanotech or anything like that. All those sophisticated materials.
That's not environmentally friendly, Tyler. Yeah. They're getting rare earth minerals from Central Africa to build all of that. But DC, they care about the planet, and that's why they're going with the most environmentally friendly thing that you can do, which is they take a cow, they slaughter it, and take its hide, they tan it in the sun, and it's much, much, much more virtuous. It's much nicer to do that. They're good.
And they go to their favorite burger place.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Here's the outside. Here's the inside.
All right. Well, I'm curious. How many characters actually wear leather on these shows?
Oh boy, I don't even know, but it's a lot. The Flash, his costume is primarily leather, except for now it seems like they're going with more of a fabric idea, but Arrow still wears leather all the time. And same with White Canary and Black Canary wore it. And pretty much anyone who's a hero, unless you're wearing armor, unless you have actual armor, you're wearing leather.
So it's basically like any video game where you start out with the leather armor and then you continue to upgrade after that.
Yeah.
I feel like that just encapsulates what's going on with DC so well. It's just, you know what I mean? You look at it and you're just like, it's cute. You're trying.
And, actually, an interesting thing is for the Flash, they had to make multiple suits because the cowl was leather as well. So if you pull it back, then you rip it and like it breaks. So they had to make one where the like hood was down and one where the hood is up. So so that way on the scenes where he takes off the hood, they have to like do cuts right as he's grabbing it to when he's pulling it off. So that way they change the suits.
Oh, yeah, that's not going to be distracting at all, especially once you know that backstory.
Yeah, I know. When I heard that, I was like, oh man, I see it every time now.
The special effects are amazing, except for the fact that we can never see him do this. We don't have the technology to do
They
that.
like have him like kind of bend over, pull it outward, and then like the next scene is like from like a different angle, and he's like pulling it back, bringing his head up, and it's like you just can tell where
they like the neck part a different material.
They did that now, but for like 4 seasons, he had to have those.
This is also the most DC thing I've ever heard.
It took me 5 seconds, like less than 5 seconds, to come up with a better solution than let's make 2 different suits.
Yeah. Well, like, it also kind of sucks for him because he has a chin strap that's connected to the rest of the hood, like to the rest of the cowl. And like, they took that off for the new season, but people really didn't like that. So I'm assuming they did that so he could take it off without having to worry about ripping and breaking their suit. And so yeah, they're adding the chin strap back, but I'm wondering how that's going to affect their filming, because I don't know if they're going back to him having to wear 2 suits while he takes off his cowl. Like,
I wonder, like, at what speed does leather break down? Right? I'm not saying that I want to see the Flash just start running and then he ends up nude at the end of wherever he's running to. But I do suspect that, you know what I mean? If you put like, a piece of leather on the front of some kind of, like, I don't know, fighter jet, like, would it hold up? And isn't he going even faster than that?
Oh, he goes like, insanely fast. Like, there's this one YouTube channel who does like called Comic Books versus the World, and he does like videos on how fast he goes, and he does all the math to figure it out. And he's going insanely fast according to this guy. I'm like, he's calculating it so much, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like so fast. I'm like, okay, I don't even understand the speed of it, so I'm just gonna stop watching his videos because
right. I mean, it's 2 miracles that I'm grateful for. It's number 1 that Hulk's shorts somehow just adapt to however big he gets, because it's like, even though it's unrealistic, I'm grateful that it's unrealistic. And 2, that whatever clothing Flash is wearing, I'm glad it's holding up. I don't think it would, but I'm glad that it's like he's not arriving to stop every single crime, and they're like, there's that fast naked man again.
I call him the Streak.
That's right.
They did for the first little bit of season 1 until he got like an official name.
They called him what?
The Streak.
Was he nude in this?
No. I don't know why they went with that name, but it was very weird.
Okay, well, we haven't even done our introduction yet, so we're gonna get into this. I don't know how long we're gonna set our timer for. We'll figure that out on the in between, but maybe like 30 to 45 minutes, something like that. And we're probably gonna ignore the bell, but we're gonna set it for a fairly short period of time, and then we'll just go until we're done. All right, folks. I hope you enjoy.
Oh man, I wish this discussion could go on forever.
Ignore the bell. We're gonna keep going, people.
All right, so we have set the timer for 45 minutes, and we're going to be talking about DC on the TV. And you are going to have to start with the most elementary aspects of this, because I don't really know even what shows are currently on TV. Mm-hmm. I'll say this is what I think is going on. Basically, this is my experience. I watched Arrow in its first season, and I got pretty close to the end of the first season of Arrow when it was first on television. And I just got to the point where, who's the star of that? What's his name?
Stephen Amell.
Yeah, and he's Canadian, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. Is he from Toronto?
I'm not sure where he's from.
But okay, in any case, so we've got a Canadian starring in this, right? And I'm sure everybody knows that we're all Canadian. I'm in the U.S. now, but we're all Canadian, so that's nice. But anyway, I could not handle that show. I couldn't even get to the end of that first season. I mean, I think I got pretty close, but it was just like, I'm like, I am not the target demographic for this because I am not getting super excited every single episode when he takes off his shirt and then you see the abs and he's working out and he's sweating, and it was every single episode of this, and it's just like zooming in on him, and I'm like, I get it. He's training. Can the man please put a damn shirt on, or we can skip over this? And it was just such obvious pandering to like 14-year-old girls to be like, oh, pretty hunky, isn't he, girls? And they're, yes, that's all we want to see in a television show. And I'm like, this is so insulting to girls. This is insulting to every viewer of this. And like the first 6 times, it didn't really bother me. But then when I was just like, every episode, we're going to get this montage, every single one. And I'm like, I am making a statement. I am done. I don't want to watch this anymore. So that's kind of where I checked out with DC.
All
Yeah,
right.
I a little bit of background for me. I've never watched is it called Arrow or Green Arrow?
Arrow, because he doesn't become Green Arrow till like season like 6 or 7 or maybe 5. I don't really know.
Yeah, okay. I've seen, I think, 2 or 3 episodes of The Flash, and I think that's about it. I always forget that Arrow came first because
Yeah.
I like tried to get into it when The Flash first came on TV, and I will say this, I honestly believe that that is the direction that DC should go. I think that they would do much better with, you know, the TV universe rather than a cinematic universe. I just feel like it works better for their particular roster of characters.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I totally agree. And one of the things with that is that because they're doing movies at the same time for a long time, the DC TV shows didn't get access to all the characters in DC. So Batman wasn't allowed to be in their shows. Superman wasn't allowed to be in their shows. And same with Green Lantern and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, all them. They weren't even allowed to be in the shows. The only reason that The Flash is still going is because that was before Justice League came out. So they get to keep going because, and it's the most popular of all the DC shows, and it's got the most viewership throughout all the seasons. To this point, I think it still has somewhere around like 1.5 or maybe 2 million viewers roughly for the season, which the other ones, they usually start out high and then go low. Like, I have no idea how Supergirl got this many, but it started out like with like a ton. Like, I think it was around like almost 10 million for the first little bit, but then like by the end of the first season it was down to like 6 million because it's honestly not very good.
I know why. It's because all of the teenage boys thought that we're going to get to see her working out in a bikini or something. Every episode we're going to get this like montage like they had with Arrow, and they're like, I don't want that, but if that's what we're getting with Supergirl, and then they're like, where's the montage? Why is she wearing so much?
I will say this though,
I could definitely see
that. I don't even know. I've never seen Supergirl, so I don't know anything about it, but
okay, but
okay.
Arrow does get a lot better after season 1, in my opinion. A lot of people do like season 1, and I think it was pretty good, but eventually it starts getting like much better. With season 2 having its main villain be Deathstroke, which is a huge fan favorite, and then in season 3 it was Ra's al Ghul, who is a huge Batman villain, and everyone was like, "Wow, they're using actual like big time villains." So Arrow started and it was pretty popular, and then so I guess somewhere along the lines in season 2 they decided that they were going to make a Flash show because Barry Allen is introduced through Arrow, and that's kind of how they started their connected universe, was because well, he's not the Flash when he shows up in Arrow for the first time. He's just regular forensic scientist Barry Allen, who is trying to he's basically trying to go around trying to prove that things that are impossible can happen, like supernatural things, because when he was a kid, his mom was murdered in front of him, and he saw like a whole bunch of lightning around her and all this. And so then she was stabbed with a knife. So his dad went to prison for her murder. So he became basically an orphan because his mom was killed and his dad went to prison. And so he's constantly like, no, my dad is not, like, he didn't kill my mom. He's innocent, but no one believes him because they're like, yeah, you're just like, you're a kid, you're crazy, you're seeing, you're just telling yourself what you want to believe. And then, so I guess I'll tell you a little bit about The Flash. So, because it's the show I watch the most. It's the only one that I've seen fully through so far. And so anyway, so Barry ends up being taken in by this family, and this family's dad is a cop, and he's friends with his daughter, who ends up being the love interest of the show. And that was a little weird, but because they're just like,
yeah, wait,
that's weird. Yeah,
wouldn't it be like foster siblings?
yeah. So
all right then.
yeah. So that's one of my biggest flaws with The Flash is I'm like, this is very uncomfortable because like this is so weird. I like eventually it's like that just stops being a thing that I think about, and I'm just like, okay, they're like, when I watch seasons now I don't think about that, but when it's first starting up it's like, this is very weird because like they're both kind of interested, but like your history is very weird here, people. And anyway, so that's kind of how Barry gets into being a forensic scientist, because he's like really smart and nerdy, as most superheroes are. And then his foster dad is a cop, so because his dad is a cop, he gets to work as a forensic scientist because, I don't know, he's got connections so he can get the job easier.
That's how he gets the job? That can't be how we choose forensic scientists.
He also is like, he did go to like school for it, but I like, you know how like, I don't know, it's just like kind of hard to become a cop and get a job fast. So he's just like, his dad, like his foster dad is like, hey, he's actually pretty good and pretty smart, so you should hire him.
I feel like we have laws against this.
The captain of the police force does say how he like just chose him to be the forensic scientist in the interviews, but like it was not till like season 4 where we hear that, and his explanation is because he wanted to help people and not catch the bad guy. He just wanted to help people in general, and I was like, okay. But anyway, that's just kind of a side note.
Sorry, go over that again. He wants
to like help people and not just catch the bad guys. He wants to help everyone. So anyway, eventually he gets struck by lightning, and that kind of like, I watched Arrow. I started watching Arrow after The Flash, so I was kind of like interested when I found out that in season 2 of Arrow, when we don't know that Barry is the Flash, well, because he's not at this point, he goes back to Central City, and then we find out that he was struck by lightning because of the explosion from the particle accelerator, and that's how he gets his speed. But like, they don't like really say that. They just say that he's in a coma because he got struck by lightning.
Wait, okay, sorry. So he got struck by lightning because the particle accelerator exploded?
Yes, I'll explain that, I guess, more in depth right now, because okay, it's I'm not the greatest at explaining this, but so basically, this group of scientists at Star Labs is working on a particle accelerator, so they can, of which I don't really know what a particle accelerator is or does,
okay.
But
I know what that is. Like, okay. I mean, like that part I'm following. But
okay,
all right.
So then anyway, so they want to start it up because they want to improve like medical breakthroughs and breakthroughs in science, all that kind of stuff. And so then something goes wrong and it basically explodes, which basically everyone who is hit by it either dies or gets powers.
Man, that goes in like, 2 very different directions.
Yeah.
You either become a lot better or you're dead.
That does sound like the classic superhero origin, though.
I know. I mean, like, one of my favorite like comments on this is from Family Guy when Mayor Adam West, literally Mayor Adam West, right, who played Batman, he just goes and rolls around in like the radioactive sludge, and then like he goes to his doctor, and the doctor's like, "You have lymphoma," and he's like, "What?" And it's like, "I thought I would get superpowers." Well, that's just silly, like, or whatever he says. But it's just, I just hear these things. I'm like, okay. I mean, that would just definitely kill you. But all right, we'll go with it.
Yeah. So anyway, Barry gets struck by lightning. He gets put into a coma, and then he wakes up and he has super speed.
Wait, what caused the lightning, though? Like, is this...
Well, the lightning kind of came, like, it was also just happened to be raining and I guess a thunderstorm while they were doing the particle accelerator, but like I don't know. So I guess like
So are they related, or
I think like they don't really explain it, but I think what happened was like lightning came down while the particle accelerator went off, but then the lightning hit him. So then I don't know. I guess that is how he got his powers. That's what I think.
couldn't he have just gotten the powers from the explosion, like all these other people?
They kind of explain it where like kind of what you're doing is what's related to what powers you get from the particle accelerator, and that's what like kind of becomes the power, I guess.
I'm not trying to make this crude. However, if according to this theory, whatever you're doing when you're in the particle accelerator and then somehow you get struck by lightning, then you get whatever that power is?
Yeah, that's a kind of a partial explanation.
So if you were doing it, would you then become a literal sex machine? Just like, that's your power? I'm just trying to ask the right questions. That's all that I'm trying to do.
You would probably get a different power or something basic like super strength or something.
Super seduction. Hello.
Yeah, that actually might be a power. I don't remember, but it could very well
that's a power. That is definitely not like a 9 o'clock TV show. That is some premium cable stuff.
Okay, but I'm still confused by the Flash getting his powers. Lightning is, yes, it is fast, but that's not the primary thing that I think of. But I think
is that why he's fast? Because lightning is fast? Is that where it's supposed to be coming from?
I don't know. They just
like electricity. I would think that then he would get electric powers.
Okay. Hang on. So this is the definition, because I wanted to get the definition right. So this is the definition for a particle accelerator. A particle accelerator is a machine that uses electromagnetic fields to propel charged particles to very high speeds and energies and to contain them in well-defined beams. So basically, I think it's supposed to be the idea is that he is getting the power from that. He's being imbued with this like particle accelerator power that all of the particles of his being are now supercharged, and they can essentially go at the speed of light, but it's contained within his body. That he himself has become his own particle accelerator, I think.
Okay.
That seems pretty accurate, because also he does have like a higher metabolism and all this, because he has to eat like constantly, but that's also partially because of the speed.
Sure.
So the lightning is just there so that he can have a cool symbol. I think that's what we've
pretty much. Yeah.
All right.
And not be called the streak, I guess.
Yeah. So can you, and I don't want to like get too off track here, but just help me out, because I really, like I said, I need to start at the basics. So we have got Arrow was on TV, and then it was The Flash. What are the other shows?
So I believe what came next was Legends of Tomorrow, and then also Supergirl. And those have been the 4 main ones, but this year they're adding Batwoman.
Okay.
Because DC is finally letting them use all their characters. So,
but Gotham is not one of the shows?
No, that's I don't really know who does Gotham, like what network.
Even though it's a DC.
No, DC kind of still doesn't really have their stuff together. It's like the CW is the only like maintained universe throughout any of what DC is doing, like the TV shows on CW.
DC owns the rights to Gotham, right? Did
I don't
DC
really
like
know.
sell their like broadcasting like their television rights to like Batman?
I don't really know. Well, they must own it because they're going to put him in like Titans and also this, which Titans is also not connected, by the way.
So when we're talking DC on the TV,
Yeah,
you're talking specifically about the CW shows.
yeah.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. Is I don't even know. So okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Now-
yeah, like anything,
and
any
so
other.
also Smallville is not included in this. Yes.
Well, actually, news
What?
just came out today that in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, because I was gonna save this for later, but because it's multiple, like it's different multiverses, so he's gonna be in the new crossover because he's gonna come through a different multiverse, like a different Earth in the multiverse, and he's gonna join the fight against the villain.
Smallville's on TV again. What year is it?
They only stopped in 2011. Okay,
Really?
It's not that far after. Apparently, that's what I heard.
I don't know.
It went for 10 seasons, so that means it would have started in 2001, I guess.
Okay.
So anyway, and then I guess
Be part
on
of this as well.
okay, so
that we have a little bit more.
yeah, okay, I guess since we're already on this topic, okay, I will save some more of who's going to be a part of it for later, but so I'll basically just explain to you kind of the history of crossovers in this, I guess, unless you guys need some more explanation.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
go for it, Tyler.
I would like a little bit of an explanation as to who the Legends of Tomorrow are.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So the Legends of Tomorrow are, well, okay. So in the show, it starts out with this guy who's from the future, and he works for what's called the Time Lords, and they're basically the people who maintain time and make sure nothing is screwed up with it, because time travel is also part of DC, as most sci-fi things. And so basically what happens is there's this guy who, this dictator who takes over named Vandal Savage in the future. And so this guy, his wife and his son are killed by this dictator. And he's just like, because he's taken over and world domination and all that. And so he's just like, okay, like, I want to prevent this from happening because, like, screw this, we need to kill this guy. And the Time Lords are basically like, well, no, we can't, because then we'd be changing history and we'd be screwing up the timeline, so we can't do that. So then he's just like, well, then, no, I'm going to go do it myself. So he goes and gets a bunch of people who, and he tells them that they're, where he comes from, they're like heroes and big name people who are going to do great things, but in reality, they aren't. He's just lying to them to get them to help. He got a bunch of no-name people who don't really amount to anything to come and help him, so that way they won't be missing if they like die or anything, because he's just like wants to have a team to help him so he can actually accomplish his mission. And so basically they just keep
These
going
guys
through
are
time.
heroes?
Yes, they are. And so they keep going through time trying to kill this guy so they can prevent world domination in the future.
That definitely sounds like the plot of a villain. Just throwing that out there.
Well, okay, I
Yeah.
guess not all of them are actually heroes, because there's Captain Cold, who's a villain. He's a Flash villain. He was on the Flash multiple times, and he was like one of the best characters of it. But anyway, and then you also have the Atom, which is played by Brandon Routh. I don't know which one it is, but he played Superman in Superman Returns. So anyway, and then you also have like the main guy is Rip Hunter, and he's the guy from the future. But anyway, so at the end of the first season, they succeed, but the Time Lords are destroyed, so they have to be the people who maintain the timeline now, or at least attempt to.
Okay.
So that's kind of where they go in like future seasons. So that's kind
this
of
Legends of Tomorrow, when is this taking place in time? Is this taking place like contemporaneous to the rest of these shows? Or is this taking place in the future?
well, like it kind of depends on the episode.
Oh,
Because
okay.
they go to like the Old West in one of them, they go to ancient Japan in one of them. They just kind of go all throughout time.
They
Oh,
are
okay.
from the future?
Only one of them.
Okay.
The
And
other
he's
characters,
gathered up all these other people from
yeah, from
just random.
26, and
Okay.
he got them all because no one really knows about them in the future. So he's like, I can get these people because they can help me, but also just like
So,
aren't that important to the timeline.
so wait, the people that he grabs, did they have powers?
Some of them, like there's Firestorm, which is basically these two people who, when they basically join together, so it's one person. It's one of their
That's perverse. That is perverse.
I'm not
They can't
really...
put that on television. Again, that is a premium cable kind of thing. And even then, not that.
Okay, well,
There's a whole other way of describing that act.
I'm not explaining it very well. Okay, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but basically,
I think you explained it quite well.
it's one guy's body, but the other guy's mind is like, but both their minds are in control. So like, and then they also have fire powers and can fly.
Gross.
Oh my goodness. This is like the most confusing thing that I can even imagine.
This is a
Lots
character
simpler
in the
when you
comics.
watch. What?
This is
So-
a character from the comics, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, and then like characters like Captain Cold, he doesn't have any superpowers. He just has a gun that freezes things. It's, well, I guess kind of Mr. Freeze, which is weird because that's like literally the same universe.
That's amazing. Just he's got Mr. Freeze's pistol.
Pretty
Hey,
much.
I'm the captain, so call me Captain Cold.
Actually, there's one character in the CW who basically gives everyone their nicknames because he's like, I don't know, he reads comics and he's like a nerd, so he just gives everyone nicknames.
That's his superpower.
No, he has different superpowers, but they're confusing as well. So okay, so that's the Legends of Tomorrow. And then you have Supergirl, who I think most people are familiar with who she is. She's just Superman's cousin, and she was sent to Earth to protect him, but something went wrong. I don't really know what because I don't watch the show, but she ended up getting here way after he did or something.
Who does she
And
live with?
does not know that that Supergirl is a thing, right?
What?
Superman does not know that Supergirl is like his cousin or whatever.
I don't know. In the show, he does because they do add him in season 2 of Supergirl. He does show up, and they know that they're cousins, but I don't know the whole backstory of that.
Okay.
Do they
but-
get romantically involved?
No,
Because we've already established that these step siblings are together, and then these two people join together to fight something, fight the powers that don't want them
They're-
together.
the two people who join together, they're Firestorm. They aren't romantically involved with each other.
Oh, no
They're just-
They
romance.
joined together. You know what? I don't want to know.
No. You have to get like some kind of, I don't know, like physiology textbook or something, anatomy textbook. You're just like folding it out.
Okay, so anyway, Supergirl is basically female Superman, and they didn't have the rights to Superman technically, so they went with her, I guess. And
Sorry, that's really sad.
That's empowering for women.
Yeah.
First,
I'm
we're gonna
just
call her
saying.
girl. Then it's like we couldn't get a man, so I guess you'll do.
I'm just saying, like, they made a character who is literally just copy and paste, but a different gender.
I just don't understand. Like when you're saying, like, I don't know what the business relationship is between the CW and DC and
So basically, Warner Brothers is in control of like all of DC, but they want their movies to be more successful, so they only allow the CW to use some characters.
Okay, so Warner Brothers has the exclusive rights to depict in film or television these characters that are the intellectual property of DC. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, there might be like a few exceptions. Like I do think Gotham was made by a different studio, but for the most
But
part,
Warner Brothers maybe granted them the license.
yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
basically it's a bundle of rights that corporations own. And so like I'm
Yeah.
assuming because like Marvel does the same thing, right? We've
Mhm.
had this issue with Marvel where they sold the rights to Spider-Man to Sony.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
But then the rest of it, then they sold the rights to depict in movies and television to Disney ultimately,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
Well, not all of them, but yeah.
But
Mhm.
some of them, right? Because it's like a
Mhm.
bundle, and so they unbundled these ones and put them there, and then sold that there in order to say you're allowed to do whatever you want with that.
Yeah.
But they still ultimately have the copyright on them.
Mhm.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify how that
Yeah.
works.
Um, so then anyway, so now they're basically allowed to use whoever they want, as far as I know. But anyway, so basically, Supergirl's connection to the rest of it, because she is actually on like Earth 38 or something, but they connect through the multiverse sometimes. They did do a crossover episode, but that was on Supergirl, and I don't watch Supergirl. Like, and so it wasn't like a
So,
big crossover, but like it was just an episode where I think the Flash accidentally gets to her Earth, and then is just like, "Help me, I need to go home." um,
so what Earth are we on? The one
we're on
that has.
Earth One,
Oh,
because
that's
well,
arrogant.
um, that's because when they were discovering the multiverse, it happens in season 2, and there's this villain who's trying to come from Earth 2, and he's basically taking over Earth 2, because he
Okay.
has super speed, so he's like more powerful than pretty much anyone because they don't have Superman and all that. Um, and there was a Flash on their Earth, or that's what they say, and he killed him and took his speed. Um, it's
Oh,
this whole process. He took his speed so he could get faster, which is why he's so much faster than the Flash. And yeah,
Sorry, I don't think that's how superpowers work, but all right.
he also does end up taking the Flash's speed,
it
but then
sounds like it's just like I don't know, like his boots or something. It's just like he's dead. What size are his feet? You just
um, yeah, it's
so,
like
but the planet that we're on, the one that has no superheroes, we just have like endless conflict around the world, specifically in like the Middle East. Like this Earth that has no superheroes is that Earth One, or
yeah.
Earth One has
Well,
superheroes?
well, Earth One is like the one with the Flash and Arrow and all
So
that. The
that's
one,
not us then.
yeah, I guess not.
Or they're insisting that it is because, and I do think that this is an important point to make, and I've talked about this before during one of our superhero conversations, that Umberto Eco, who is a former um, literary theorist and critic and philosopher, then he talks about the idea of the issue with Superman, and he wrote this very famous essay on the issues with Superman, which is that you can't give Superman too much power because ultimately the universe that Superman exists within is no longer recognizable as our world.
Hmm.
And so the narrative itself is always being limited by the fact that he can't change too much. Otherwise, it becomes this whole foreign world that we are falling into every time we read a Superman comic, that you still want it to be identifiable as our world with the problems that we face on a daily basis. But the second that you introduce these superhero characters, then it becomes foreign and it's no longer our planet. And so I just thought that, like, without getting too into that, but I just thought if they're already going to um, overtly include the idea of like parallel universes or infinite Earths, then why wouldn't there be the Earth that we live on where there are no
Mm-hmm.
superheroes? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Does that not come up within this whole thing?
Um, they they don't really mention it because it does start out as a pretty grounded universe with Arrow because especially because I
Yeah.
was like coming off of like the Dark Knight trilogy and all that. So they went with a lot more of a grounded tone, and then they slowly built on that, which helps it to feel a little more grounded. Like with the Flash, it doesn't feel too out there. Um, so But then later on, they do again build on that to make it like there's more things that are kind of unbelievable. So that's kind of how it is. But yeah. So anyway, so Supergirl is connected to the Flash through multiverse. That's just the basic explanation, I guess, is just that because one of the characters, he can create like portals to different Earths. That's one of his powers. Because he can basically teleport, but he has to create like a portal to do it. So that's how they can travel across multiverses and all that. And then Batwoman does exist on our Earth because now they can do Batman, I guess. I think. So they decide to go with Batwoman for whatever reason, who is a character in the comics.
Is it the same reason as
and-
Supergirl?
I don't really know.
Yeah,
I think
I thought that the character from the comics was always referred to as Batgirl.
there's a Batgirl and a Batwoman.
Oh, okay.
And a
Yeah.
Bat Lady and a Bat Gal
I don't think there's those two, but we
and a
should
Bat
make it
Madam.
That
Bat
would be
female.
like Alfred's wife, Bat Madam.
Yeah, I'd watch that show.
Yeah.
Me too.
Now because Batgirl is Barbara Gordon.
Yeah. And
Batwoman.
Batwoman is
Mrs. Gordon.
Cassandra Cain, who is the way they say it is that she's literally Bruce Wayne's cousin.
Kane, as in Bob Kane, who developed, who created Batman.
I
Is
guess so.
K-A-N-E?
That's what I was thinking.
No, it's not though. It's I think it's
C-A-I-N?
I think so. I don't really know the spelling to be honest, but I think it does start with a C. I don't think it's the other way. But anyway, because they do say that Batman does exist in the universe. They said this literally in the latest season that came out. And he was like kind of the first vigilante ever, and then he just like has disappeared, though he's been gone for like 3 years. And what everyone thinks is that like he could be like the Christian Bale Batman, which is what some people are saying, but like, and I could kind of see it. And so they're like, yeah, he came before like anyone else in Gotham and was like kind of just known in Gotham pretty much. And then eventually he's just disappeared, which does line up with how the Dark Knight Rises ended, because he jumps off of that ship or whatever he's flying, and then it explodes, and then he just shows up later in the movie, and he's like still alive, I guess.
Yeah, doesn't have any radiation burns or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did look it up. It is K-A-N-E. So it is a reference to Bob
okay.
Kane. Yeah.
Huh.
Cool.
That's interesting. So anyway,
But you said that Batwoman is Batman or Bruce Wayne's cousin,
yeah.
and Supergirl is Superman's
Yeah.
cousin. I'm sensing a trend here.
Listen, and you know that there's going to be some weird romance going on between them. This is basically like Babar. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but in the actual book of Babar, the original one, then they're cousins and they get married. So like whatever.
Yeah, I did know that they were originally in the comics, like Batman and Batwoman are like their romantic thing, and then eventually they changed it so she's his cousin, and then like I don't know the full history, but that's like all I know on it, and I'm like, okay, apparently DC is very weird about their romantic
like
couples.
VC Andrews is writing this stuff, and I don't know if you guys are catching that reference or not, but she wrote a lot of like essentially incest fiction back in the 80s, and it was very popular, very popular. I'm not kidding, not making this up. Like you could go to any used bookstore and you're gonna see a VC Andrews section. It's gonna be as big as the Stephen King section. Not making it up. It's called Flowers in the Attic is the first book, and then it just carries on from there. Young girls loved these books. So just saying.
does. Oh boy. Okay, so I guess now I'll go through the crossovers if you guys don't have
Yeah.
any questions. Okay, so the first crossover was just Arrow and the Flash, and it started out with them working together to catch a bad guy. And so yeah, that was basically how their first crossover went down. It was a 2 episode thing, like 1 episode on the Flash, 1 episode on Arrow, and they teamed up to take down a bad guy. And then the second one was oh, you have a question?
Yes. So, first of all, which was the like introduction episode, and which was like the resolution episode?
The Flash, I believe, was the introduction episode.
Okay,
The-
so for fans of the Flash, and for fans of the Flash who don't like Arrow,
Mhm.
would they have to see the episode of Arrow in order to
Yes.
understand how it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is also, I think, in part a way for them to up their viewership, or at least in some part is because when you have to watch, like, then at least for like 1 episode, you just get a huge spike of viewership because fans of one show have to watch the other.
Yeah, it's
Um,
basically offering a free product at like, you know what I mean? Like, come in on
Yeah.
your birthday, get a free ice cream, and then it's like,
Yeah.
now that they're in the store, you know,
Yeah.
then they're going to see how great it is, and yeah, and hoping to pull people in that way when it's really transparent. But don't you think that there's a certain element to, if they make it too difficult to be able to keep up with all of these different shows, that they're ultimately going to lose viewers?
That's
Yeah.
me right here.
I definitely think that could be a case, but in the beginning it was like really easy to stay on track, and for the most part it is because it's not like you really have to watch them all. Because I've been just watching the Flash for the most part, and I can still keep up with the crossovers pretty well. Like they're pretty self-contained. It's not like Marvel where you like have to watch all the movies to be like to really know what's going on. Because they generally explain who everyone is in like a really basic form. So it's a lot easier than having to keep up with Marvel, except for the new season and the new crossover, which again I'll get to.
I mean, it is and it isn't, because with movies, then it's like, well, yeah, I need to see each of these, like 20 movies or whatever at this point.
Yeah.
But with the TV series, then it's, well, I have to watch 20 hours of each show each year.
And
Like,
then
that
stop partway through a show to go and watch a little bit of the other one.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know.
Just for the time commitment, like that's honestly one of the main reasons why I don't want to get into these shows, because I'm just like, well, it's gonna steal all my time.
Yeah. I definitely understand that, and it's like, yeah, like there's not really a better way of it. I kind of wish that they were like, I wish that they would just like kind of air like the whole crossover is just like or at least earlier when it was just 2 episodes, is just like here's like a little extended episode, enjoy it, because then it would probably maintain the viewership and like of both shows as well. Also, you just get to watch it in one go, whereas instead you have to watch it one on this night, and then the other on the next night.
Yeah. So I want to interject here because I just want to know just that way of how this works. Because I mean, for one thing, I canceled, like I haven't had cable literally in years. So I don't keep up with what's happening with television. When do all of these shows air? Like what night of the week?
How they do it is they air back-to-back nights. So that way, it's like you watch like the Flash on Tuesday, or I don't know, maybe like Arrow on Monday and Flash on Tuesday. I also don't have cable, but one of the ways that you can watch is on CTV's website. They have the episode come on free the next night.
Right.
So that's how I've been watching for a long time, and now Netflix somehow got the rights to it. So they aired episodes weekly for the Flash on there as well.
I understand.
So yeah, that's basically how I've been keeping up with it. And well, with Supergirl, it's a little more difficult because for some reason it's not on CTV's site, which is also part of the reason I didn't watch their show because I'm like, oh, I just can't find their episodes.
Huh.
I feel like
Yeah,
a lot of Americans who are watching this are going to be going, "Where is this CTV site? I need to
Right.
figure out where this is
Canadian
that's showing these free
television.
episodes."
Canadian television. Yeah, we are that original with our names. But I mean, you've got the same thing though with like ABC, right?
Yeah.
American
Yeah.
Broadcasting Corporation. So, all right, that makes sense because my question, and this is where I wanted to get into a bigger discussion. I do want to hear more about the crossover, but I just wanted to point this out that one thing that I am interested in with all of this is that the way Netflix has gone about their own television universe, or sorry, the way Marvel has gone about their television universe is by going directly to Netflix and then using the streaming model where they all get released all at once for the entire season, and then people can just binge on that and they can do it kind of at their leisure or as quickly as they would like to watch. And they've done this, and it seemed like these shows were well received, and now it's just like canceled.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going to happen now that Disney's going to have its own streaming network.
And also, on that note, then ABC was also airing Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As well as, I think, Agent Carter.
Yeah.
I think that
That
kind of was a thing.
Yeah, I think that was
unkillable
juicy.
man, right? Isn't he the unkillable guy?
No, Agent Carter
No.
is like, she was like Captain America's love interest.
Oh, okay.
Captain America, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so you did have those shows which are on cable
Yeah.
and are, and do air weekly. So it's, Marvel definitely has is far-reaching, doing kind of all these different things. But now even Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is this is also its final season because it's also been canceled. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, I did want to clarify that officially Netflix does not renew. They're not canceling, right? Because they haven't canceled the shows. I just wanted to it is an important distinction though that they don't renew it. So
and sorry.
No, you go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
I do like what Arrow is doing this season because it's their final season, but they're doing that by choice because they want to stop while they're still liked by everyone, and they don't want to wait until like everyone is like, I hate this show because you just run out of things to do. So they're like, we're stopping now, so that way we don't have to keep making content when we just don't need to. So I really like that because I'm like, oh, thank you. You're just ending because you decided that that's the right thing to do. And I'm like, I wish more things would do that. Like, stop trying to just make stuff for the sake of money when you could just be like,
Matrix 4 is coming out.
Oh my goodness.
Actually.
Yeah, I know.
actually.
That's like so frustrating. So anyway, so there was another crossover, but that wasn't very important. It was just not well received as well. So then anyway, the main big crossover, which was the first kind of more than just the Flash and Arrow, which also included Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl. It had 3 episodes, and it was called Invasion, where it was basically these aliens show up to Earth and invade. But it was a lot better of a plot than that. It starts off with
3 shows.
The Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow.
Okay.
So those were the 3 shows that aired on. It started with The Flash, and it starts out where Barry Allen finds an alien in this ship that has crash landed on Earth. So he's like, okay, well, we're going to need some help with this because it was like a lot of aliens there. So he's like, okay, I need to get some help with this. So he gets Arrow and wants to get help with that. So and they also get the Legends of Tomorrow and then eventually Supergirl. And so that's kind of how they team up, is just because they're like, okay, we can't just do this as one person, even though you can make the case for that for pretty much any of the villains that they face. like in pretty much any other crossover stuff like Marvel. So anyway, what ends up happening is they do end up working together and taking down the aliens, and that's how the crossovers start off, and then they do it every year now. So I don't know. Do you guys have any questions on that?
All right, so Supergirl was the one who, like, she was the last one recruited, and
Yeah.
then she solved all the problems.
No, she didn't.
Oh,
So
okay. But she was
uh,
not, like, but it was not, there was no episode of Supergirl where she
no,
was involved with this.
no, it wasn't like an episode aired on Supergirl. It was just
That's interesting.
yeah. The next crossover did have all four shows have an episode, but for this one they were just like I don't really know why they didn't. I think
I
it's
mean, you
just
don't
'cause-
need to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't
Yeah.
need to stretch out the the plot for
Yeah.
4 episodes, then yeah, just do it in 3.
Mhm.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyway, and that crossover did get pretty complex because I guess one of the things I'll say about the Arrowverse is I love how they've connected it because like in the
Sorry,
very
is that the name, like
Oh,
the official
yes.
name? The Arrowverse?
Yeah, because it started with Arrow, so then
Okay.
everyone just started calling it the Arrowverse because it's better than it's easier than just saying, "Oh, on the Arrow, Flash, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl on that universe."
Right.
So anyway, in
Just
the
call
Arrow,
it the DCTVEU.
but there are apparently multiple DC universes, as I've found out, which is frustrating, but that's, I
Yeah.
guess, just how Warner Brothers does things. I love how connected it is because in, like, as an example, in The Flash season 3 at the very beginning, Barry Allen goes back in time and saves his mom from dying, which changes like everything. And then he does eventually set things back to the way they were, but some things did not change. They stayed the same as how he changed them. I worded that pretty confusing, but I think you guys are following.
Yeah.
So like one of the examples is a side character on Arrow. Instead of having a daughter, he now has a son. Because I don't know how that changed, but that's like one of the examples.
There's so much with this. I don't know what is going on here. Like,
This is like the most complex, I don't know, just story I have ever encountered. It feels like they are doing so many random things just for the sake of doing them.
It's not random though, I promise. It's actually like a well thought of thing. It's just really
You just said you don't know how
Well,
that
I don't know
changed.
how that one thing changed, but
it's the distinction between complex and convoluted, right?
Yes.
So convoluted is needlessly complex. Complex
Right.
is like it's essential to whatever it is. Let's say if we're talking about a narrative, then it's essential to the plot for it to be this complex. But convoluted is it's incredibly complex, but for no purpose other than just to be incredibly complex. And I don't quite know because I can't speak to this because I don't watch them, but definitely getting a broad overview, then it's hard to not just have my eyes glaze over and just say, okay.
yeah, I understand that. Well, it's kind of important for the crossover that they did that year, which is the first one, which was Invasion, because basically Arrow is like, hey, I think we should have the Flash be the leader of our team, so that way we can have like, because he's like, we need to have someone who's like the leader of the team, and so we're not just like going around unorganized and stuff. And then they all find out what he did, and then they're like, well, I don't trust him anymore because he didn't tell any of us that he did this. And they're just like, so we're just not going to trust him. And then Arrow's like, well, I'm going to, so if you guys are going to go and do your own thing, then I'm not going to help you because we need to have a team structure here. And they're just like, all right, well, then I guess you're on your own. And then they end up coming back together in the end because, you know, crossovers and stuff.
Right.
So But yeah, so that was like kind
But
of
does that
how it
happen with
affected
every
everything.
crossover?
No.
Okay.
So like in the next crossover that happened, which was Crisis on Earth X, which is Earth X is basically a world in which it's a world in the multiverse where the Nazis basically won World War II.
Okay.
And so then it was like the Nazis kind of control that Earth, and then also the superheroes have become like the top people after like Hitler and all that.
Like the superheroes are Nazis?
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, it was really
Does
cool.
this have its own show? I'll watch that.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like you could probably watch all four and not be very confused because it starts with the wedding of Barry Allen and Iris West, which then yeah you could follow it though. It's not like it is like, oh yeah, you have to know the history of all our shows to watch this crossover, because with the wedding, basically all the heroes from Earth One are invited because I don't know, he wants a big wedding, I guess. So, so anyway, then the Nazis from that Earth are just crash the wedding and are trying to kill them. It's also been a while since I've seen the crossover, so I don't quite remember why. So
I mean,
anyway,
they put all the heroes in one place at the same time.
Exactly.
yeah. So then anyway, so that one ended up going over all four shows at the time. And it was quite an interesting crossover. It was really cool to see, like, because superheroes who are also Nazis fighting superheroes who aren't. It was very interesting.
Hmm.
So anyway, I guess I'll go into the crossover that's coming out this year. And so anyway, the first thing we ever saw of that was in the pilot episode for The Flash. And all it was a newspaper from the future that was titled Flash Missing, Vanishes in Crisis, or Vanishes in, I think it was said Crisis. Probably just so that way people would know Crisis on Infinite Earths. Also, it was one of the most well-known things for like that comic for killing off the Flash.
Okay. Yeah, wasn't it? I want to say it was Earth in Crisis. The Flash vanishes.
Yeah, something like that.
Because I did watch the pilot episode of The
Yeah.
Flash.
So the newspaper also said 2024, but then time travel screwed it all. Okay, one thing that I was very criticized about The Flash is the time travel is confusing, and
So is it
kind of
complex or convoluted?
probably convoluted.
Okay.
Well, I guess some cases are convoluted, some cases are complex.
Yeah, I don't really understand how a guy who moves super fast is able to travel through time.
They do give an explanation for that in the first episode, or not the first episode, but the episode where he time travels for the first time. And they usually just give some stupid science explanation where they're like, oh yeah, because science, he went back in time. So it's basically just them being like, don't worry about it. He went back in
Okay.
time because science. And that's like, okay,
Star
I
Trek
guess
technobabble,
that's what
gotcha.
yeah. So then anyway, so the timeline gets all messed up, and actually I missed a crossover, but that's okay. So basically the timeline gets screwed up, so now the newspaper article is from 2019 rather than 2024. So anyway, so this year, it's obviously based off Crisis on Infinite Earths, hence the title of it. And the main villain is going to be Anti-Monitor, and pretty much he's just like in Marvel, like Celestials.
Wait,
Like-
isn't that like
Yeah, vaguely.
Like
that
Galactus.
was Peter Quill's dad?
Yeah, and they're kind of like these like beings who are just like really powerful and kind of like they're like
They've been around forever. They
yeah.
will be around forever.
yeah, that kind of thing, and they're kind of like really powerful and like
Yeah.
beyond the universe, I guess. So, what happens in the comic is basically, Anti-Monitor learns about the universe that exists, like the living universe, because he didn't know about it, I guess. And so he finds out about it and decides that he wants to destroy it because um, I don't really know. I haven't really read it. I just heard about it. So that's kind of the villain who they're dealing with. And so he wants to destroy the entire multiverse. Um,
Does
and
that
then
include his own universe?
no, because I guess he's in a different one. I don't really know
Wait.
how that works in the multiverse. I know because it's like, wait, but then wouldn't that be Earth in the multiverse? But I guess it's not even a universe. um, I'm sure they'll
Okay.
explain it better on the show. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if he's like trying to destroy every other universe other than his own,
I think
or
it's like he lives in like something that's not really technically a universe. So he wants to
outside of
destroy.
space and time. Gotcha.
I think so. So anyway, so all the heroes are gonna team up and stuff, but we're also gonna see heroes from different Earths teaming up with them. And this is something like what they're doing is actually like really cool because they're using not just their TV shows, but they're bringing in things that already exist in other stuff. So like they'll give a partial explanation to the big characters who are gonna play a big role. Like there's gonna be Black Lightning, who um, they're they're also kind of made by the CW, I guess, and they're just their episodes are put on Netflix. I don't think they air on cable, and so anyway, they're gonna actually be part of the crossover, and I haven't seen any of that, but I've seen like a whole bunch of reactions by people, and everyone is loving it, so it must be a good show. um, and then they're also gonna bring in so as I said before, the actor of Adam from Legends of Tomorrow is played by Brandon Routh, the guy who plays Superman in Superman Returns. So Superman from Superman Returns is going to be in the crossover, and so I am very excited about that because that is so cool. Um, like I love that they're bringing him in to like because I mean if you got the actor, why not? um,
Sure.
and it's not like people are gonna really have a difficult time catching up with that because it's like, oh, it's just in Superman Returns. You can watch that movie if you want. It's like maybe 2 hours.
Probably don't though. It's not good.
Yeah. But I love that they're adding him in, and they've come out and said that he's not gonna play like just regular Superman. He's gonna be playing um, from basically the comic they're taking inspiration from for this Superman is the storyline Kingdom Come. I'm assuming you guys don't know what that is, so I'll explain. It's essentially a distant future where this new, like these new superheroes came up and they were really violent and just like didn't really care for the stuff that they did. So Superman was like, well, if they're not going to do that, like do anything right, then I'm just going to stop and they won't listen to me or anything. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to retire. But then they keep
Wouldn't
like,
that just give them like complete control? It's like
well,
these guys are out of control. I better just stop.
um, it was kind of like the people were like, well, no, because we like what they're doing. We think that they should kill all these people and like they should kill criminals.
It
Um,
sounds like the theme of fascism comes up a lot in the DC television universe. And
yeah.
it seems like this show is like, or these shows are kind of open to the idea. This is where we're getting all these like neo-Nazis. They're like, that's the common thread. Like, follow it through. How many of these people are like, well, I'm a big fan of the shows on the CW.
um, so in this future anyway, they end up doing I don't remember what, but they do something that's like really bad. It gets a lot of civilians killed. So Superman's like, okay, I gotta do something about this. So he comes back and gets all the old superheroes and they go and fight the young superheroes. And he goes to get Batman and Batman's like, no, this is stupid. Like you should have just helped him in the first place. Um, and then he's just like, so I think you should try and like fix it in a different way. So anyway, that's kind of uh, the history of the Kingdom Come Superman, which they're going to explain in the crossover. So that's who Brandon Routh is going to be playing.
The Superman who gave up.
And came back.
Okay.
But anyway, so the crossover is like really exciting because they're like just bringing in like not just TV stuff, I guess, because now it's like there's a movie character who's going to be in it, which is really cool, and I don't think that's ever been done on TV before. But also like it makes sense for their universe to do it now because they're kind of like ending Arrow, and the Flash has gone on for a while, so it's not like it's like super unnecessary that they're doing all this.
Okay, wait. So which character from the movies is appearing?
Superman from Superman Returns.
Okay, right.
And then also, I guess I'll ask you this to start things off. Did you guys have you guys played Batman Arkham? I assume I know Tyler has. I don't know if Nathan has.
No.
Have you seen Batman the Animated Series?
No, not really. I think I've seen like one or like just a couple episodes here or there.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes.
Okay. Because the most beloved voice actor, Kevin Conroy, is actually going to be playing Bruce Wayne in this as well, and I'm like so excited for that. I'm like, that's like one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Oh my goodness! Like, and they also said he's in the future, so I'm hoping they're doing Batman Beyond, and then he's also like, you know what? This is so intense. I also have to put on the Batman suit and help. Like, that would be so cool to see like Batman Beyond and Batman fighting together. That would be amazing.
That's true. Yeah, I was a big fan of Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my question then is, and I'm just trying to make sense of this because, I mean, to clarify, I'm not, and I know that I really don't need to say this if anybody regularly watches the podcast, but I'm not a big fan of superhero fiction in general.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am interested more in the concept of different forms of storytelling, and specifically really ambitious storytelling. And that's partially why I wanted to do this, because I am interested in that, even though it's like, I don't really care for the superhero genre, but I like this idea of crossover universes and what to do if you're dealing with this complex of a story. And it's interesting to see how it's being worked out. And on the one hand, it seems ambitious, and on the other hand, it doesn't seem like they're doing really anything new or interesting, because they've still separated the cinematic universe from the television universe, and then within the television universe, then there's still, there's the CW universe, but then Gotham exists over here, even though it's contemporaneous in time. You know what I mean? Like, I believe that Gotham is taking place in the present, is it not? Or is it taking place? It's been a while since I've seen an episode of Gotham.
Yeah, I don't know, but like, Gotham is, I don't really know what their deal is with that, because like, they are doing stuff with like Gotham City itself with Batwoman and all that. So I'm assuming that, I don't really think that Gotham is like has any connection like the show.
No, and I'm not saying that it does, but I'm saying that if Gotham is taking place in the present moment, then it gets confusing, because on the one hand, they're trying to provide this fully immersive universe where they're saying all of these superheroes exist at the same time and in the same universe. And then they're saying, but then separately, then Batman is also like 12 years old at the exact same time period, but it's in a whole other universe, but it's not part of the infinite Earths. It's a whole separate thing. And then the cinematic universe is a whole separate thing. And so then I'm saying, how was this any different than what happened with Buffy and Angel in the 1990s, where you had crossover episodes between, like, because Angel was a spin-off, more or less, of Buffy, and then there are episodes, because I've watched a lot of that, and I'm not a Joss Whedon fan at all, but like for various reasons, and I have watched a fair bit of both Buffy and Angel, and it's the same kind of thing. It's that you kind of can watch them both at the same time, but then the episodes do cross over from time to time. Or even going back before this into the 70s, then there were, like all kinds of different crossovers, whether you're talking about like sitcoms, and there was like Mary Tyler Moore, and then there was Rhoda, that was a spin-off of that, or there ended up being, and even though they weren't taking place at or like, I mean, whether you're looking at like Everybody Loves Raymond and King of Queens in the 90s, then they existed in the same universe. And it's like there were some kind of crossover episodes. And I'm going, on the one hand, I'm like, I want to see them do something ambitious and groundbreaking and actually be really bold. And on the other hand, I'm like, it doesn't sound like they're doing it. And even though it's really complicated or really convoluted in terms of what they're doing with, like, they're doing it with 4 or 5 shows, but I'm like, how is that different than just doing this with 2 shows? They're not combining a cinematic universe with a television universe, with a comic universe, with a video game universe. They're not orchestrating between all of those.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of, you know, when Power Rangers and the Ninja Turtles had their crossover.
Right.
Like, it's like, yeah, they're kind of connected for this one little bit, and then they're just going to go their separate ways and not be connected. And I do, from what I remember of the couple episodes of The Flash that I saw, then they do have, like, Arrow or Green Arrow, whatever he's called. They do have him, like, appear occasionally. Like, just, and it's not necessarily a crossover. It's just he happens to be there. Which I think is great to see that, because it does make it feel like that is more of one, you know, consistent universe. But I definitely do agree with you, Nathan, that there's a lot of potential there, and it's sad to see that that they're not incorporating, you know, the stories from the movies or the characters from the movies into this, that they're just trying to, you know, make their own separate universe. And
and I guess my point is, it's like their own separate universe, but it's also a much lamer universe than what you get in the movies, where you're just like, you're getting superheroes that are not as powerful and you're getting villains who are not as powerful, but at the same time they're insisting, you know, no, but this is a crisis that's going on across like multiple Earths, and it's like massive, and it's like, if it's that big of a problem, where the hell's Superman, where the hell's Batman, where the hell's like all of, like, you know, like Justice League, right? Where are they then? And that's just, it's frustrating when you're dealing with that. And there's multiple, you know, franchises that have done this, where they're both limiting themselves and they're trying to establish that there's huge stakes, but then it's also incredibly limited in what they can do from a narrative standpoint. And I just feel like DC has, and I don't know about their own, like, their financial status right now, like their overall economic status, but as best I can tell, because I'm only, you know, peripherally paying attention to this, but Marvel has been kicking their butt for a long time, right, in terms of like overall revenue. And so if DC, since they are facing off against, like, they've been losing to Marvel for a long time, why don't they actually try to do something that Marvel is unwilling to do, because it's pretty bold and pretty daring and it could fail? But why not take a risk and then say everything's connected, everything? And it's like, and to do it in such a way where you can still just watch, you know, this thing, or play this game, or read these comics or whatever, where you can still kind of do it piecemeal. But for obsessive fans, then they're basically going to have just the most fully immersive universe we've ever seen. Wouldn't that be great to attempt that, even if they fail? But just the attempt, I think, should be applauded. And it seems like they're cowards who won't do it.
It seems like they're, you know, like they're almost doing it, where, as you mentioned, like they are bringing in, you know, Superman from one of the Superman movies. But, you know, they're like, but they're only doing it because they already have the actor.
Well, there are other things that they're doing, like I did forget to mention this, but Burt Ward from the '60s Batman is coming back to play a character, and I'm really hoping.
Will he be playing Robin?
They haven't said, but I really hope he is, because that would be amazing.
That would be really, really great to see.
But yeah, I think the only reason they're not like crossing over with the movies that are going on right now, which does kind of suck, is that I don't think they have the money to bring in those big name actors, which does suck.
Yeah, I mean that's what what Nathan was saying essentially is why not take the risk and just do it, like just have Warner Brothers step in and say, yeah, okay, we're going to pay for these actors to be on these individual episodes to make them part of this connected universe. And if Warner Brothers or DC had done that, then that would be really, really great to see that level of commitment to saying, yeah, all of this is connected, whether you love, portions of it or hate portions of it, then it doesn't matter because, there you can still jump in at any point and find something that you like, but it is all connected for those who are really dedicated.
Right. And I feel like basically my point here is I think that DC, they've actually had the jump on Disney for a while with this, with what Disney ultimately is planning to do with Star Wars. And because Disney's going to have their streaming platform, and we're going to start seeing Star Wars television programs, right? Like The Mandalorian. And it's like, and that is part of the same universe. And it's like, Disney's going to beat you guys. They're going to beat you at this game. And because you half-heartedly did this, you kind of got close to doing it, but you didn't actually go all the way. And now, because Star Wars was already doing that to some degree, but it took more work because you had all of the canonical literature, right? All of the books that are official parts of the Star Wars universe. And then I believe that there's kind of like the books that are not canon, but they're still Star Wars books. Right? That there's, if you like the movies, well, you can watch the movies, but then if you want to go even deeper, then you can get into all of the books, but the movies hold up on their own. And that's what I'm saying, is if they kind of tried to follow that model, but they said, if you just want to watch this TV show, it'll hold up on its own. But if you want to watch all of them, then you're going to see all kinds of great connections. And if you also want to watch the movies, then you're going to see all kinds of great connections. But if you just want to watch the movies, you can do that. There's all these different entry points. And you can be as engaged or disengaged as you want. But instead, it feels like I can't watch any of these TV shows because they cross over, and that I'm not willing to watch all of them. And then if I go and watch like the movies, well, there's no connection to the TV shows and vice versa. And then there's other TV shows that don't even relate to it. So then you're trying to convince me that this is all one big expansive universe, but then that. So
I think the Flash is the perfect example there, where there are multiple Flashes now, where there's one in the movies and then there's one on TV, and like why didn't they for Justice League just hire the same actor that
I wish they did,
that they already had for the Flash TV series. Just be like, yeah, okay, you're going to be in the movie now, and bring him right in.
And I don't get why Warner Brothers doesn't do that, because Grant Gustin is definitely willing to. Like, you can tell, because he loves obviously playing as the Flash, and I mean, if you're going to get offered a paycheck, you're going to take it. And so I do think that they should do a lot more with the movies now, but honestly, I don't really complain about that, because I don't want to say complain, but I don't get annoyed by that, because the shows are just honestly, they're so much better than the movies. And I just really love what they're doing with it. And especially now, because with this crossover, I wasn't really expecting them to do this much, because I'm oh, you're going to bring in Kevin Conroy, the most famous Batman voice actor, and then wow, you're going to bring in Brandon Routh Superman, who I was he was a good Superman, and that's cool to see that now there's a connection to that movie, because he is still that Superman. It's just also now there's a whole lot more that happened from 2006 to now. Gotcha. And then now Smallville as well, and then there is going to be there was a TV show of the Flash in the 90s, and so he's going to be a part of that, because they did kind of introduce that with the latest crossover, but that was really just a cameo, so they could be oh yeah, we've got him too. But that one was not as big. But anyway, so I do think like a lot of what they're doing is still really cool, and I love like that they're doing all this, adding in all these characters who are just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's just like, oh wow, like I kind of forgot about like Brandon Routh Superman. I kind of forgot about him until now. It's like, oh, he's going to be in the crossover, and it's like, oh wow, that's actually pretty cool because like I have seen Superman Returns, and I would love to see him have a better role in
Yeah, and that is also really interesting because, just like if I had been, if I were actually watching all these different CW shows, um, and they announced that, uh, that version of Superman was going to be in this, then I would probably make an effort to go, watch or rewatch Superman Returns, just because I'd be like, oh, well, yeah, I want to, remember what that version of Superman was like. And that is interesting. I think at this point, then it's a lot of it is just DC doesn't seem to know what they're doing. They're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's like not in terms of what they're throwing into this crossover, but just in terms of what they're throwing out there in terms of content. I mean, I don't even think that like has a Justice League 2 even been announced? Yeah, no. Because based on everything that I've heard from the rumor mills and film news, then they want to do a Batman film that does not star Ben Affleck. That's actually going to be a prequel, or might just follow a different Batman altogether.
Yeah, I don't even know Batman. What that. Yeah.
And deals with like him going to Arkham Asylum, which that sounds great. I love that idea for a movie, but it does seem like they just kind of were like, oh, well, that version of Batman didn't work. Let's see what else we can do. And, and even with the, with Suicide Squad, they were like, well, nobody liked that. And certainly nobody liked the Joker in it. But everybody did love Harley Quinn in that. So let's give Harley Quinn her own movie. And throw in all these other different characters along with her. So it's interesting because they do
recast Joker. With Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Yeah. And I think that's been the biggest difference between the TV shows and the movies is that the TV shows actually have like 3 specific people who pretty much run all of the shows, and that's Mark Guggenheim, and then Andrew, I don't remember his name, but Andrew something, and then also Greg Berlanti. And these are the 3 people who are kind of like overseeing everything, which I don't know why the DC movies aren't doing this, because it doesn't seem like they have one person or a group of people who are like, all right, let's control what we're trying to do and how we're going to do that. They're just kind of like, oh, you know what? It would be cool to see this movie. Let's have this person do it. Oh, you know what? It would also be cool to see this movie. Let's do that. Oh, wait, but they're supposed to be connected. Oh, we didn't create a connection there. All right, Justice League.
And like, if Tyler, I'm sure that you've got something to say with this, and I think that this is an interesting connection, although it may seem like a bit of a non sequitur, but isn't that pretty representative of if you're comparing Disney parks to Six Flags? And what I mean is, Six Flags, do they not have the Warner Brothers characters?
Yes, they do.
And how good of a job do they do in theming? Or is it just some random, let's throw that thing in there, and Disney clearly has got a vision, and Six Flags, and that's how it feels with Disney just in general. It really does feel just like there's no commitment, there's no vision behind this. It sounds like with the shows, like the CW shows, that there really is a vision, which is great, and that they do have showrunners that are overseeing the whole thing. But then it's frustrating when it's like, but this is a bigger universe than just the CW. And so then that's what I'm saying. Like when you're talking about even like getting into all of this transmedia storytelling, right? Because transmedia is just like media in different formats. And so you can have storytelling through amusement parks and through video games and through comics and through movies and through television shows and through different things that you can throw on the internet, like, you know, a web series or whatever else. There's just so much stuff that you can do, and it would be great if they really went for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't tell you how happy I would be if the Six Flags dark rides that they had been building over the past few years, they were all like basically the exact same ride, called Justice League Battle for Metropolis. I can't tell you how happy it would make me if those were actually considered, you know, part of this same universe, or part of the
Yeah.
film universe. But instead, they're just their own story. You go to the park, you know, you go on that one ride and experience a quick little story with Lex Luthor and Joker like trying to take over Metropolis, and then that's it. And it's just its own self-contained story that has all these different Justice League characters, but it doesn't have any lasting connection. If that were actually, you know, at all related to what was in the movies, then that would be really, really cool.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that, because like, yeah, pretty much the only thing they could do at this point that would make me more excited for the crossovers, if they were like, oh yeah, Henry Cavill is coming in as Superman, I'd be like, oh my goodness,
Right.
like I'm even more excited. That's like the one thing they could do that I'd be like, I am even more excited. But
Now, Henry Cavill, is he actually? I thought I heard, is he no longer going to be Superman in the movies either?
Warner Brothers doesn't know. They're
Oh,
just
okay.
they're just like they're kind of trying to say, like, it's basically they're saying we're gonna recast, but at the same time they're like, but like we're not 100% sure yet. And so it's like, can you just, like, Warner Brothers, come on, like, just figure out what you're doing, because it's very frustrating when they're like, because they know that Wonder Woman works and they know that Aquaman works, so they're gonna keep doing those, and they know that Batman's gonna work no matter what. But Superman, it's kind of been mixed receptions from these new movies, so they're like, should we maybe do something else with him?
Yeah, not to get into the whole DC discussion, but I do. Bringing it back to the point that I had said, you know, at the beginning of this podcast, you know, I do feel like the DC characters work better on the small screen, where you're dealing with these characters who are, you know, sometimes literally gods, with, you know, like Ares and everything being some of the villains, and it does work as a villain of the week style series. And you can build these, you know, big universes with all of them being connected. It'd be great if there was a Wonder Woman TV series, and you know, and Superman and Batman and Cyborg, and you know, all of that, and have it all be connected, and have, you know, Justice League crossovers, or better yet, which is what I thought they were going to do when the Flash first came out, have the Justice League be the movies, but have each of the characters have their own show. So you can watch all the different shows, and then have those actors all be in the movie. Which would be taking on a bigger threat that they couldn't handle individually.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be great.
And I really did think that that's where they were going, and I thought, wow, that is really ambitious. That's really, really interesting to build up all the individual heroes in their own, you know, stories. And not have it be, yes, we're going to do this one movie which is designed specifically to introduce people to this one character, and then we're going to throw them into you know, the crossover movie. No, have them have their own full story.
That's such a good idea. And then that contrast with Marvel, because they're doing something different. Because instead, it's like they're trying to be like Marvel, but nobody's going to be. DC's not going to be better at being Marvel than Marvel is at being Marvel. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to be a better version of Marvel. They have to do something different, and they are different, but they don't seem committed to that, to being different. And they keep just not quite following through.
I do think that the shows are not quite as much trying to be Marvel as much as the movies. And even then, the movies, like, I loved it when they were going dark tone, but then they were like, well, people didn't really like our movies, so let's just try and make a Marvel ripoff. And I'm like, so I kind of stopped getting
But it
interested
looks
in the
like
movies.
Joker is going to change that.
Yes,
Because
which
isn't this part
is
of like a
exciting.
dark something? They're doing like a
Um,
series of films that are going to be like DC Dark or something like that.
yeah, I've heard that, and I think it's just that they're like those are like that's what they're gonna call their movies that take place in a different universe, because they
Okay.
are doing that with the movies now. Because Joker's not part of like the Justice League universe that we saw in
Right.
the movies.
Right.
But I'm not 100% sure on that. But also, when you call it dark, then you get to make it R-rated, because then, like,
Exactly.
if you give it that brand, then kids aren't gonna say, "Wow, that seems very appealing."
Which is what I
Uh,
think DC should be doing.
yeah, me
Yes.
too. And
Like, if you make it taboo to some
mhm,
degree, right? That
yeah,
I mean, the best way to get a kid to read a book is to say, I don't think you're ready for this.
Right.
I think that this is, it's too frightening for you, or I think it's too grown up for you, or
mhm,
it's, it's going to be like too hard for you to understand, or like there's too much violence. It's just whatever. Just say no. Try to basically put up a barrier, and then you're going to get a lot of interest. But
yeah,
instead, if you just say it's really for everyone, and
mhm,
it feels like that, so then it's like, well, it really satisfies no one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because yeah, I do feel like, especially again, one of the differences that I think is a really important one between the movies and TV shows is that the TV shows, they each have their own tones, but they still feel like they're part of the same universe. Because like Arrow is a lot darker than like the Flash, especially because like one character becomes like an alcoholic, and it's really interesting because it's like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting them to just be like, yep, this person's an alcoholic and they're having that problem, and they do it in a darker way than the Flash does it, because the Flash is more of like a lighthearted show, and
Well, yeah. I mean, Barry Allen is more of a
yeah.
jokester. So
Yeah. So I like that they can have like different tones, especially than what Marvel is doing, because um, it that's again why I like the DC shows, because like it feels like something different and something new, and that's why I like it. Whereas the movies, it was like I loved Man of Steel, I thought Batman v Superman was good, and then after that they were just like, eh, those didn't work, so let's just go with a completely new direction that feels completely different, and it's not even close to as interesting. Like,
mhm.
so I that's why I don't really like their movies as much anymore, because like they just gave up after they tried like something and then it failed. So
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed Man of Steel. I remember after I saw it, I said that I felt it was the best Superman movie that there could ever be,
mhm.
and even still, it's just an okay movie. um, because you're dealing with a character who, like he's he's unbeatable. He is, you can't do anything that feels threatening to him, and they took it in an interesting direction by having him, um, at the end. And yeah, he wins, but he feels like he lost, and I think that was like really brilliantly done. Um,
Mhm.
but anyway, yeah, I agree that I think that Warner Brothers and DC in general, again, they're throwing things at the wall. Whatever sticks, they're like, okay, let's keep going with that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Whatever doesn't, they just completely change direction.
Mhm.
And
And
it's
yeah, it's that it feels like DC overall doesn't have a vision.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Marvel overall has a very clear vision. Like they
Yeah.
literally map it out with their posters.
Yeah.
They've got their phases, and
Mhm.
it's so you are able to be oriented within the Marvel universe. You know where I am in the phase and what came before, what's coming after, the direction of all of this stuff. Like, you've got a sense of like what's happening. But DC just overall, I'm not saying within like the CW shows, but overall just feels, directionless, and there is no vision. And I think the reason why these shows are working is because they actually have showrunners who are overseeing all of this. But then, like, my frustration, because I'm not saying that I have a frustration with the shows, it's that I have a frustration with DC in general, because I really do prefer most DC characters I prefer to Marvel. I mean, not all. I do really enjoy X-Men, but but there are, I do really enjoy a lot of DC characters, and I wish that we had a better vision for this universe.
It's interesting because we, as you said before, I think it was you, Nathan, who said, DC is not going to out Marvel.
No.
And they very clearly were trying to go in that direction, including having a whole slate of films that they had announced. They were going to have a Flash movie. They were going to have a Cyborg movie. And those are just not happening anymore, as far as I know. And that's really upsetting, because those were actually the two that I was most excited for. I'm like, I don't want to go see an Aquaman movie. Wonder Woman, sure, I guess that could be fun, but I really love these characters of Barry Allen and Cyborg, who are, human. That they actually are human. And yes, they have powers. I mean, Cyborg is a cyborg, but he's not a god. He's not Wonder Woman or Aquaman or whatever else, or Superman. Like, they were actual people, and I was like, I want to see those people. And instead, then they're just like, we're just going to focus on all these, gods. And I'm like, I don't care.
I do agree with both of you and what you guys have both said there, because DC definitely needs an overall direction. And I think that is, as you said, Nathan, a Warner Brothers problem, because even in their amusement parks you can see that it's a problem, and if you can see it in their amusement parks, you can definitely see it in their movies.
Right.
And the Six Flags parks do occasionally build a Gotham City section, or try to have their DC universe area, but it's usually not the most cohesive. Certainly not too much theming between rides. And it's just one section of the park, and even sometimes then there will be one random ride that's off to the side, like out of that area, that's like, oh yeah, this is Harley Quinn's Spin Sanity, and you're just like, oh, that's all the way over there, that's not in Gotham City. No. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Because
I think that it contrasts so well with what Disney has been doing with, let's say, their new expansions, getting into all of the Star Wars stuff, right? Galaxy's Edge, and seeing the way they've gone about doing that.
And the upcoming Marvel land, which is called Avengers Campus, down at Disneyland. They are building that. They're going to have a Spider-Man ride, and then eventually they're going to have an Avengers e-ticket ride, which is like the big ride. But right now, then they're working on they're constructing the Spider-Man ride. They've already got they rethemed Tower of Terror to be Guardians of the Galaxy. They're going to have a Doctor Strange show, and all that, is in the same space, and it's called Avengers Campus. Anyway, again, it is more of that, cohesive nature. And in addition, the Disney parks are attempting to only have, they're building a Spider-Man ride in California, in that park. But there won't be a Spider-Man ride in the other parks, because Spider-Man can only be in one place at once. So they're trying to like even take that into consideration, where they're like, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
well, we're only going to have those characters be here, and then there's an Iron Man ride over, you know, in Shanghai, and you know, an Ant-Man ride in Tokyo, you know, just things like that, where it feels like there is an overall plan for that, and
Yeah.
not, you
Mhm.
know,
And
like again contrasting with the Six Flags park, where every single one
Yeah.
seems to have Batman the ride.
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, and that's exactly it. It's that I feel like there shouldn't be this fear that if you that you're making it too challenging for people to be able to um, engage where because
Mhm.
I think that Star Wars is a good example of this where you can kind of engage as much as you want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if you want to just go for it and just go absolutely as deep into the mythology and the lore as you want, then you can, but
Mhm.
you can watch the films. You can just every, you know, year or every couple of years, you can go and see a new Star Wars film and be able
Yeah.
to appreciate it on its own, and the story's going to hold up. But at the same
Mhm.
time, then you can get into all this other stuff. And I like the fact that, you know, Disney is doing that with its parks, where
Mhm.
it's almost like you're checking things off on a list, but you don't feel like, oh, I only got part of a story by going to this park. You're
right.
just
Yeah,
like
Mhm.
that. It held up on its own, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's why I'm grateful for the update on all of this, Luke, with what's going on with
Yeah.
DC, because I genuinely am, and I've been curious, and I've been
Mhm.
wanting somebody to explain it to me, and I kept hearing about, you know, DC and their plans, and their the plans being ambitious, and
Mhm.
sounds like what they're doing with CW is ambitious between these shows, but it doesn't seem, other than just having multiple shows doing this, it doesn't seem any more like, it doesn't seem novel. It doesn't seem like they're doing something new and different that we have not seen on
Mhm.
television before. Just, it's not a difference of um, in kind, it's a difference of degree. They're just
right.
Mhm.
they're going to a greater degree into crossover, but they're not doing a totally different kind of crossover,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is what I was
Yeah.
Now,
hoping for.
right.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
am I am curious. You said they are going to be coming out with a Batwoman show.
Mhm.
And has has her character been introduced, or do you expect her character to
Oh,
be introduced?
yes, she was introduced in the latest crossover, which
Okay.
was it wasn't a very big crossover. It was more of like kind of how they do in comics where they'll do like a prelude where, or I guess they do it in books as well, but like where they'll do like, here's like a little story that kind of introduces where we're going, but like it's not
Right.
essential. Um,
Yeah.
whereas like, so
Laying
that's
the
kind of,
groundwork for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where they kind of introduced her, and it was only for an episode because they were like, because the main villain had ended up, um, it's I don't know, to briefly explain it, the villain of that crossover was changing reality um to see if the heroes were good enough to face the new crisis that's coming.
Okay.
And so basically he changes reality, so there's a character who's in Arkham Asylum, and so the characters go there to get to find this villain and this book which gives you basically the power to rewrite reality. That book was also there. So they go there and they end up finding Batwoman.
And she
And
she was already Batwoman.
yes,
Okay.
and then they're gonna give her backstory in the Batwoman TV show, which I've heard is going to have Batman. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've heard. Um,
Yet another version of Batman.
yeah. And also another thing that's just a final point, I guess, of this is that actually one of the characters, it very well seems like is going to become Green Lantern, which is an Arrow side character. And I think that's really cool because, like, I want a good Green Lantern, and the movies just aren't doing it, but they weren't letting the TV shows do it for the longest time, and now it seems
Hmm.
like they're finally like, okay, whatever, do it because people like your shows better than they like what we're doing in movies, so just go for it. And
Yeah.
I'm very happy because I would love to see Green Lantern just show up and just be so awesome because Green Lantern has so much potential.
So then, if
Um,
that took over for Arrow, right?
Yeah, I would hope so, but I'm not sure if they're gonna go that way with that. But that would be really cool.
Do you know what I mean? If they just
If
put
they,
it in that same time slot.
yeah, yeah, I really hope that they do that. They did say that there's going to be another show, but they haven't announced what that is yet. And they're trying to say like we're not taking over for Arrow, like it's not going to become the next Arrow, but it's going to be a different kind of tone and different show, but also like we're just going to bring in another show. And I'm like, I like that they're not just being like, oh well, we're missing Arrow, and so we want to keep those viewers who like that character because we just want them to be a part of our universe. Like, I like that they're like, you know what, we're going to do something different with a new show and not just do the same thing over and over again.
Mhm.
So that's nice, and I really hope that it does become Green Lantern because that would be, oh my goodness, a Green Lantern show would be so amazing. But yeah, so that was just kind of a side note, I guess. Um, but yeah, so
Yeah,
Interesting.
no, that's it really does sound like, they are they're doing a good job with these shows, and they
mhm.
are building uh uh a very well-established universe, a
Mhm.
very cohesive universe where
Yeah.
everything seems to work together very well. You've got, some heroes are still being introduced.
Mhm.
Some have, already been around, but you don't, get a lot of it, but don't get
Yeah.
a lot of attention. Um, yeah, it seems like, when you watch those shows, you are watching uh, a full cohesive universe,
Yeah.
which is good, and that is what Marvel has been doing with the movies. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that, Warner Brothers or DC seems somehow incapable of, holding uh, a movie franchise like that.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to keep trying.
Yeah.
I'm fine with them just doing the TV series, and I get why they would want to do movies because that's where, the majority of the money is.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I do think that, like, if you're able to tell compelling stories on TV, then keep doing that. And I do
Yeah.
also like that, a lot of these shows are about uh, more or less lesser characters.
Mhm.
They're not the ones that would get top billing
Yeah.
in films. I mean, Legends of Tomorrow, like, we had no idea who they were.
Yeah.
Um, Green
Mhm.
Arrow, he's not going to get a movie ever. Just
Mhm. Yeah.
so it's good to see that those characters, who I know, a lot of comic book fans have strong feelings, toward. It's good that they're getting something that they can, sink their teeth into and really appreciate.
Mhm.
Um, it's not something that's, you know, for me, but
Mhm.
yeah, I do think that it's good that they are doing that, and I hope that I hope that Warner Brothers puts in the kind of funding, care, attention into these shows. Like, I hope that they
Mhm.
continue that moving forward.
Yeah.
And I don't really care if, they do the like introduce the movies into it or not, because it just feels like the movies are such a mess and they keep being, rebooted, redone, like just given up on so easily that I feel like that would take away from the cohesiveness of the
Mhm.
existing Arrowverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I don't think they should try to pull in the movies as they stand right now. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and you can do from a storytelling perspective, then television does offer something quite different, and that's why it's interesting to me with it being traditional
Yeah.
television, traditional. I don't know what the CW counts as. I guess that's not network television. I guess that's cable. But to be able to do like a full, however many episode seasons. Like how many episodes are you getting? Is it like 20 something
Yeah.
in a
It's
season?
23, except for
Yeah,
the
that's a
newest season.
lot.
The newest season of Arrow though is only going to be 10 because it's the final season, so they're doing less, I guess.
Huh.
Right. And in some ways, it's such a throwback that it's interesting that you're still getting that, and that there's an appetite for that, and that seems to be that younger people, and I think that might be a distinction. It's that teenagers, and I mean, I don't think I think I'm qualified to speak to this. That teenagers have actually got a lot more free time. They'll say that they don't, but they have a lot more free time than adults. And so they're able to actually get into these things where, like, as an adult, I get frustrated if I feel like a single episode in a season is a waste. And like, I'm talking like, you know, an 8 episode season of something on Netflix. And it's like, and if one of them, I'm like, that was a bottle ship episode that was just in one location, and it was like, they obviously didn't have much of a budget for that episode. And it just kind of stands on its own, then I'm like, what a waste of my time, because I'm really busy and I've got a lot of things going on. But teenagers do have a lot of time to kill. And so they ultimately, like, if you've got these shows where it's like I look at this and I'm like, 23 episodes in a season, and there's how many seasons and there's how many shows, and I'm just like, that's impossible. But then when they're gearing it towards teenagers and that ongoing serial drama of the shows, that I think also appeals to teenagers, where, you know, and the soap opera qualities to it. Because, and I don't mean that in a negative way, because like I mean, I'll speak to, like, The Walking Dead absolutely is a soap opera. It's a horror soap opera, but it 100% is a soap opera. And I like The Walking Dead. I mean, I've got massive issues with many seasons, but I still do like The Walking Dead, and certainly the comics. So it's fine that they're doing that. It's just, it's also one of those things where it's a little strange for me now as an adult looking at this going, oh, my youth is gone. I just can't participate in this anymore. Maybe when I'm an old man and I'm retired, then I'll be like, give me something where there's like 6 different versions of it and 20 something episodes a season.
When you're retired, I will definitely send you some of the DVD copies or Blu-ray copies of it, because I do own some of them, some of the seasons, because but it is, like, honestly, I wish it was done more like these big series, because, like, it's so nice to watch, like, an episode of The Flash where it's like there's a weekly villain, and, like, it's just like a different villain every week, and then you have like a 2-part episode, and then you also have like a season-long villain, and it's just so nice because it's like, it feels like a comic almost, but like in a TV form, which is just amazing.
Yeah, and that's, you know, again, what I was, you know, kind of getting at with me saying that DC, I think that it works really well for them, because they do have such
a lot of villains.
An incredible rogues gallery. And that's great. And there's the constant, you know, frustration with people when there are movies, and it's like, why are you showing me the same villain? When there are so many that you can choose from, that if you're able to do these, you know, TV series, having a villain of the week, that's great. We get to see all these different villains that we ordinarily would not get to see. So
and then I'll just throw in one last thing on that, because Arrow actually did have a Suicide Squad, which had Deadshot in it, but then the movie was being made, so the studio told them they had to kill off their Suicide Squad, or at least write them off. So they had to write off every single character, and it was like a lot of the people who I see online, they were kind of mad at that, because they were like, this was so much better than the movie we got. And like, they're just like, why did you make them kill them off? Like, they were so much better. And so yeah, that's actually, like, that was one of the interesting things, because I didn't actually know that there was Suicide Squad in it until I watched like some of Arrow, and I'm like, oh, Suicide Squad's in this. Oh my goodness, this is really cool.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I'm curious if either of you know, because they are coming out with a new Suicide Squad movie called The Suicide Squad. Is it supposed to be a sequel to Suicide Squad, or?
I think it's like an indirect thing. So like, because we're gonna have Harley Quinn in it still, and we're gonna have still Rick Flag, like the army guy. So and Amanda Waller, I believe, is going to be in it too. So I think there's some characters, but all the ones that were like not really liked, or even some of the ones that they were like there is potential with them, I think they're keeping them in. But then they're just going to add in new characters who are totally different. So that way they can do like basically a sequel to the good stuff and indirect sequel with stuff that's hopefully going to be better, but we'll see.
Right. Yeah.
But
All right. I'm curious as to I'm assuming Nathan that you have not watched Marvel's Agents of Shield.
No.
Luke,
Ask me anything. I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I kept watching, but it was the only good season is the one with Ghost Rider, and it only and the only good stuff was a half season because it had Ghost Rider for a half season, and then they're like, oh, our budget can't handle having him for the whole season, so
Was it Nicolas Cage?
no, it was it wasn't even Johnny Blaze, it was a newer version from the comics, and it was amazing. I loved what they did with Ghost Rider, and then as soon as he was off the
He's
show,
in a car, right?
Yeah.
Not a motorcycle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, but
No,
it was
I only
like,
bring it up because that it kind of sounds like Marvel's Agents of Shield is more akin to what Nathan, what you were looking for with this, where it is it involves characters who were in
yeah.
or who are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including Clark Gregg being oh man, Agent Coulson,
Yeah.
who died in the first Avengers movie, but then they had to explain how he came back to life for this series to start. And that is actually a really interesting storyline that I do like seeing how that plays out. But yeah, so it has him. They occasionally have Samuel L. Jackson show up as Nick Fury. Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe it the first time that happened.
Yeah.
Then again,
I'm
look
not
at
like,
Sam. Yeah, if you look at Samuel L. Jackson's IMDb page, though, I guess it's not that surprising.
right.
That guy's been in like 1,000, like he's got like 1,000 credits. It's kind of crazy how many movies and TV shows he's been in.
Yeah.
The only thing...
so they've got him. They've got like some one of the side characters from Thor who appears every once in a while. So there is some crossover there, and they do have to deal with the ramifications of what goes on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is kind of funny though, because my understanding is that it's not being looked at by like the same group who looks over or plans out the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the TV series kind of has to play it by ear, and just every season they get told, oh yeah, so this is going to happen in the movies, so you have to write that in somehow. And in like the second season, then then in between, then like the movies said, oh yeah, Shield was actually under the control of Hydra this whole time, and has all these Hydra secret agents, and now Shield isn't a thing. And then the show had to figure out a way to work around that when their show is called Agents of Shield.
That sounds kind of like a fun little writing task, right? To like somebody, it's that activity that you do in a classroom where it's like a one sentence story where each person in the room says one sentence, and like you keep trying to make it more and more difficult for the next person to try to resolve all of the complications. Yeah, that sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, I've been listening to it in the background while I've been doing other things. I do feel like
it's that good, huh, Tyler?
Yeah. It's just so long. I can't invest that much time in it. But yeah, so that's just something to think about, because they do have that, and then they did have the Marvel Netflix series, which were tangentially related, like they were taking place in the same universe as the movies, but they were not directly related to the events of the movies.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
interesting to see the way that those two even contrast with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the one thing that I don't really like about the Marvel shows is that it always feels like they're trying to be like, Marvel, please recognize us, like to the movies. And
Mm.
that can get really annoying. Like with Daredevil, it was like, oh, that's such a great show, but they're constantly referencing like the Battle of New York from the first Avengers, but like then they're just never recognized by the movies back. And it's just like eventually I'm like, okay, they're not even really connected because it's just the TV shows that are trying to be like, oh, we're part of their universe. And it
Yeah.
feels like when you like make a group of like, or if you have a group of friends and then there's that one person who's like, oh yeah, I'm a part of their friends group, but you're like, what are you talking about? You're not a part of our friends group. You show up every now and then and talk to us sometimes, but what? You're not a part of us.
It,
Like,
it's somebody who's getting the silent treatment, and they just
yeah,
keep speaking up. They're like, "Wait, I'm here too." They're like responding to things
yeah,
that other people are saying, but just nobody's responding to them.
yeah. And so that
Yeah.
can get pretty annoying. Like even with Agents of Shield, like they made Coulson the director of Shield at one point. Oh, sorry if
Yeah.
that's a spoiler, but and
Oh,
then
that's okay. It's nothing but spoilers on this podcast.
I know, but
It's-
Tyler is watching it in the background of his
No, no,
daily
no, I know,
stuff.
I know that. It's fine.
He might notice now, like you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah,
Wait,
he
I
did say
thought
that
it
was gonna happen.
Oh, right. Luke told me.
Right. That's what's gonna happen. That's how much of a spoiler that was.
But yeah, so it's just like, but he's never recognized in the movies ever as director of Shield, and they never really mention Shield until like Age of Ultron when they're like, oh yeah, we partially exist, but we'll never mention it after this movie. Like, it's just like you just feel like you're just trying to be acknowledged by Marvel, and then you're just not. And then they tried that whole Inhumans TV show thing, which ended up being a major failure. And like, it's just like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
that was really interesting. That was when
yeah,
they had the premiere show in movie theaters, correct?
yeah, which was really exciting because I am actually a pretty big fan of Inhumans. And then it was just like, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, wow, what a nightmare.
Is this all Marvel stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
We can wrap.
Can you let me go?
Sorry.
I didn't watch any of these things, and now I really haven't watched any of these things.
I'm sorry. It was just for comparison's sake.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to do it for comparison's sake. But aside from like
Yeah.
references to it,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. But it does sound like maybe Marvel is doing something more like what I'm curious about. And again, it's I'm not really interested in the particulars because I don't like superhero fiction, but I do really like the idea of transmedia storytelling and ambitious storytelling across multiple, media formats, whether it just be television, film, and then getting into other things as well, right? So I'm curious what other things are like, whether DC or Marvel, what they're doing. And so it's kind of good to get an update on that, which is about as far into it as I want to get.
Yeah, that's specifically why I'm, only watching Agent Shield in the background, because I'm just like, well, I'm curious as to how they're going to respond to all the different things that happen in the movies. For example, when Thanos snaps half of the population out of existence, I'm very curious to see how that works in the show. Like, how do you write off half your cast for one season, and then it's kind of a different timeline? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting when I get to that point. But it's yeah. Anyway, transmedia.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Luke, for this. I really do appreciate it. That you did a great job of walking us through this. And I don't know about other people who have, been watching this podcast, whether like you have, people who are watching this, if you've watched all of these DC shows on the CW or other ones we talked about in the whole DC cinematic universe, and then comparing that to Marvel. But feel free to comment below, and hopefully, like, we brought up some interesting points of discussion with this, because it is interesting to me what's happening with this, even though it's not my interest, but I'm interested in the overall conceit of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, are we done then?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to comment below, and we will see you next time. Bye.
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 Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right. We're gonna go home. Yeah. All right. We're done.